Awkward delay to not get cut off. Welcome into Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland. You may be watching us on the YouTube side right now. You can get to me at Follow Adam A. You can get to our guest that is here today in episode 2 of an off-season edition of Clippers Talk at Rich Homie Flom on X as Big Shot Bob Flom, who I affectionately like to call him, is with me, joining me on the show. The first guest here on the YouTube side. You've come on with me for years as I've been on the radio, post-game, doing Clippers Talk there, Rob. But thanks for doing this, my friend. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Honored to be the first guest. It's quite something. I appreciate it.
I've always been fond of your dry humor and Ben Stein-like delivery. It's very endearing. And your knowledge of the game and the Clippers specifically in this case. And I just realized I have to promote the last show. Okay, how do all these things work? Last show, I talked about Stephen A. Smith going after Kawhi Leonard and saying, I want a hot take bubble to pop in this era of sports media. And just so happens, I realized I am drinking a Diet Mountain Dew. Should I pour it out for Skip Bayless? Since I don't know if he has 1.4 shows left in him. Yeah. Rob, do you have any comments? Did you see any of that show? Do you agree with my overall sentiment regarding the downfall of sports talk with just polarizing issues and everybody taking one side?
Yeah, I do agree. I think Stephen A, Skip Bayless, that whole crowd is largely to blame. But I think just the way social media has gone and the need to generate takes and generate engagement and clicks and all that sort of stuff is unfortunately, boring analysis does not generate clicks.
Boring. How dare you?
Yeah, I've been known to write boring analysis. So that sort of stuff. That sort of stuff just does not draw buzz. When we look at our traffic, the biggest stories are always news and rumors. And people just, analysis is whatever. Whenever I hear people on NBA Twitter talking about I wish there was so much more analysis, and people don't really want that. The vast majority of people really don't want that. And it's just I would like that, but Stephen A is, the most popular sports media personality in the United States right now for a reason. And it's because a lot of people really like the way he talks about it, as much as we might not like that.
I don't know if he deserves such a comprehensive response to that question. I thought you were just going to say, yeah, he sucks, get rid of him or something like that. That was really, really well done and informed on the issue. That was Rob Flom, Big Shot Bob Flom in full effect here on Clippers Talk. I'm Adam Osland. Coming up, I will tell you how you can win a new era lids type of hat from the new flagship store at Intuit Dome because I'm going this weekend. So I will get you that hat. I'll let you know. We'll have a little prize giveaway here. It will have something to do with the comment section, a little bit of a quiz for you. But okay, so I'm listening to the Lob the Jam, the podcast earlier today, as I don't miss many episodes. Over the last 5 years, I probably missed a handful total because of your great analysis, along with Lucas Hand, don't call him Han, along with Dr. Shap on there, the big three consistently. Clippers now missing one of their big three. But something you brought up yesterday, I believe when you guys recorded the latest episode for August, for the start of August, just a little bit of a recap and check-in type of episode, you brought up something interesting to me. It's something we don't think about enough, I believe, when we're talking about how productive a team is offensively, and it's passing, and it's connecting, and it's having that free-flowing offense. And the Clippers have a different dynamic now without Russell Westbrook, without Paul George on the team, two higher usage players. Obviously, Russ was coming off the bench last season, but guys who do have the ball in their hands often. And Russ, most effective when he does have the ball in his hands, pretty ineffective without it. And as much as we have derided their passing at times, and it's easy to mock, and they'll throw it into the stands as you guys do that commercial on the Lob the Jam the Pod for Barry's Tickets, I think it is. Yeah. As much as we talk about that, there are times where they're brilliant in those areas. Paul George in the 2021 playoff run, the offense was run through him after Kawhi Leonard went down. He was more than capable. He has spectacular passes here and there. I guess that's what makes it such a head-scratching ordeal when you see him make such terrible passes. But, even the pass he threw to Kawhi Leonard for the alley-oop in Game 3 last season. It's a pinpoint perfect pass. He shouldn't have thrown it because Kawhi was on a bad knee, but it was perfectly placed for the oop. I want to get this a little bit more fleshed out with how the Clippers adjust to life without Paul George passing-wise, without Russell Westbrook there distributing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I kind of ended up joking about in the podcast, they're going to need a lot from James Harden this year. Like a whole lot from James Harden, 16 years into his NBA career. So many miles, so many games played, one of the highest usage players in NBA history. And they're going to need him to not do quite like a Houston James Harden. He's going to need to be a lot closer than he was last year and a lot closer than he was even in Philadelphia. Maybe even than he was in Brooklyn, because the Clippers just do not have many ball handling options. They brought in Chris Dunn, a move I quite liked. Chris Dunn, a more defensive first player. He's a guy who honestly plays a little bit more off ball, even though he's like a point guard. Norm Powell, a very effective scorer, not a good passer for a high scoring guard. You just go up and down the list, like Kevin Porter Jr., who's another addition. He can pass, but that's really not his game. He is a ball stopper, and not in the kind that like James Harden and Luka are, where they really are able to distribute. He's, again, more of a score first kind of guy. And that's really their next cadre of guards, presuming, and I know you and I are both Bones Highland fans, all the signs are that he is not going to be on the team, and that he's probably the second best passer on their roster right now, and he's not going to be on the team at next season. So it's really the answer right now. I know Shaq, brought up in the pod Kobe Brown. I like Kobe Brown. I really would need to see evidence he's an NBA level player before I can trust him with like playmaking and like a lot of distribution for what should be a good team next year. So I think it really will come down to, they're just going to need a really, really big kind of throwback James Harden year. Maybe he has it in him. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Now, are you saying that if you're talking about the Clippers being a top 6 seed, they would need James Harden to be at that level, that elite level playmaker that he has been in the past? Like, where are you putting them depending on how good he is with the ball in his hands and how often he can do it now without Paul George, without Russell Westbrook?
If the Clippers are a top 6 seed, I think several things would need to happen. The first probably would be a healthy and excellent James Harden year, like clear all-star, fringe all-NBA level season at the least. They need him to play 70-plus games and probably get to that level. They need a pretty healthy Kawhi season. I think every single indication and report is that they are going to go back to load managing him. But like, even if they do, maybe he makes it to 60 games and he's pretty healthy. They need that, and they would need probably one or two of some of the younger guys to pop, or a couple of the guys who are younger veterans like Zu or Terrence Mann to take steps forward. I think a top 6 seed is asking a lot of this team. I think they can definitely get the play-in, maybe even the top half of the play-in. I just, in the Western Conference this year, considering Kawhi is going to be back on load management, probably, I think it's gonna be tough for them. Like, they have talent. I think the defense is really upgraded, and defense does have a higher floor in the NBA. So maybe if they're just a league average offense and quite good on defense, maybe that's enough. But yeah, I mean, I just think in order for this team to be good on offense, they're going to need a whole lot of James Harden, especially in games when Kawhi Leonard doesn't play. I mean, they will have no other option. James Harden's going to have like a real Houston era James Harden level usage in the games Kawhi doesn't play, which is probably, again, going to be at least 20.
Heliocentric James Harden basketball, where he's back in that familiar role. And last season, he averaged 34 minutes per game as a Clipper. He did play 72 games. 16 points, 8.5 assists per game. His assists were down by about 2. If you go back the 5 years before that, he was playing heavier minutes before that. Obviously, now he's going to be at the age of 35 by, I think, the time the season starts. Yeah, his birthday is August 26th here, so it's coming up. So it is going to be demanding. It's going to be asking a lot out of him. I'm almost curious in physically where he's kind of at. If there's, I don't know, a second afterburner that's kind of going out, but there's enough left. If you talk about gas left in the tank, but from what happened with the hamstring in Brooklyn, I wonder if there is more to James Harden just getting further away from that injury that he could show this upcoming season. Is that at all realistic? Has that crossed your mind at all?
I think it's possible. I mean, he was really good last year outside of, he had one not very good month and a half down the stretch of the season. And then was quite good again for most of the playoffs. But he was really good. He was an all-star caliber player last season. I do not think he was all NBA caliber. But he was one of the 30 best players in the NBA last year, I think. Probably towards the back end of that. Like he was probably in like the 27 to like 33-ish range, but like he was very, very good last year. The question is, can he get back up to like a 20 to 22nd range? Especially as you said, in terms of like just the sheer volume of minutes and touches. I mean, it is possible. Like the hamstring injury really nagged at him. It really sapped a lot of his explosiveness. He will now be a few years removed from that. He was, as you said, really remarkably healthy last season. He had a couple of like minor things, but no real injuries. And before that hamstring, he was a tank. I mean, it was one of the reasons he was so valuable in Houston is he never missed time. It's possible. I mean, I think like I wouldn't bet on him playing more than 70 games again. For a guy his age with his miles, that's asking a lot. But like, it's not impossible. Like, if Kawhi Leonard is not playing that many games, James Harden might, but I don't know.
The other side of it is it's human nature, but he still is technically playing for a contract. Getting that 1-in-1 deal, that does dangle a bit of a carrot. I think it was very unexpected from all of us. We thought it'd be 2+1. We thought he'd be on that 3-year timeline with Kawhi Leonard. The 1+1 for $70 million total. That means he can opt out after this season if he has a great year and then cash in with $150 million or whatever it might be. That's another factor here.
It is. I mean, I do wonder like what team outside of the Clippers is going to pay him. And I mean, maybe if he has an awesome year for the Clippers and, they figure like even by paying him a big amount, they have a plan to get like a third star in the summer of 2026, or they just feel like they might be good enough just with him for another 2 or 3 years. Maybe the Clippers just pay him and kind of reward him and have him be that second guy. I'm still a little skeptical, but I do think like if he has a really good year, he could. I don't know if he's getting 150 million, but he could definitely probably get maybe like a 2-year 90 or something, like more per year and an extra couple years of security. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a ton of incentive in him. I mean, notably, his biggest issue with Philadelphia and Daryl Morey was not any sort of personal thing. It was the lack of a big contract. And, the Clippers offered him way under the max and he took it. So, he does have a lot of incentive to be really, really good next year and give himself like one last big payday.
Robert Flom is our guest here on Clippers Talk from the Lab, the Jam, the podcast at 213 Hoops. I'm Adam Moslin. This is Clippers Talk. You may be a subscriber to the Spotify or the iTunes or the iHeart, but now we have it in YouTube form for you. Currently, it's at Follow Adam A on YouTube. I think eventually it'll be named differently, but you can get there now doing that. And as my name tag says, also find Clippers Talk on TikTok. I am playing the game. I am completely guilty of utter hypocrisy from a day ago where I said, you know what? I'm not going to do what everybody else does. I'm not going to have a platform on show on every different platform because I hate all the different streaming channels out there and how you have to go to different places to find different shows. And here I am. I'm on TikTok and the gram now too, but whatever. I'll play the game a little bit here. Robin, sticking with this subject matter of the Clippers and that connectivity and how they're going to be able to move the basketball and play hot potato this season. They were last in passes per game last year at, I think, 254. Now, some people, Russ Stans, we'll get into that in a little bit here too, but they might be saying, see, it's the James Harden effect. Fewest amount of passes per game. Yeah, they were also a top 5 offense. There is a way to win playing that way, and it's been pretty proven overall with James Harden. I know he hasn't reached the ultimate goal, but you can play slow down, methodical, isolation basketball in this league and win. You mentioned some of the young guys earlier and Kobe Brown and your kind of skepticism on where he's at as an NBA player right now at this point. And it's valid. He's about to turn 25 He played a handful of games last season where he was really getting a shot in November and actually was starting to turn a corner, it looked like. The game was starting to slow down a little bit, but just got a brief 10-game type of look from Coach Lou. I think it was still valuable for him to get that time out there. But what would you say, if anything, or any area he's progressed in most from year to year, just seeing him in Summer League and what he was able to do? Granted, kind of a slow start for him, but I felt like he did finish Summer League strong overall, but the foul issues remain. They did run the offense through him at times.
Yeah.
Felt like sometimes he was comfortable doing it. Other times it kind of sapped his aggressiveness on offense because he was just trying to be the connector. How would you evaluate his Summer League and what he could do for this Clippers team? Because obviously if he popped at the 4 spot, which is a position of need, that is one of those ceiling raising type of developments for this Clippers team. If he could really come around this year, that would be huge for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of his Summer League, I think I gave him like a B or B minus for it. It was fine. I'm a generous grader in Summer League, much more so than in the regular season. I do think like when you look at his stats, like the raw numbers were way up, his production was up. I just thought he kind of had a somewhat more consistent impact, even though, as you said, like his aggressiveness maybe was not what you want. But I think like his ability to kind of run the offense and be that kind of main playmaker was improved from last Summer League. I do think like his passing is a plus for a guy his size. I mean, I would say quite honestly at the NBA level right now, it's probably the only true plus he has for his position. He's not a plus defender. He's not a plus shooter. He's probably an okay enough rebounder. Ball handling is solid for a guy his size, but the playmaking, like there are not a ton of guys his size who can pass the way he does. It's valuable. The problem is that like the rest of his game really needs to be good enough for him to have that value. I think in particular, like one of the shot or defense has to pop. If he's a good shooter and he's like just a valuable offensive player who can hit threes and, make plays from kind of the elbow and even maybe running some pick and rolls, like that has some value. If maybe the shot doesn't come along, but he is able to get better on defense and he's kind of a jack of all trades, Kyle Anderson type guy, like that has some value.
That's my comp. That's my comp. You're playing to the crowd here. I like it.
Kyle, that would be an extremely, extremely high ceiling outcome for him, obviously.
Who would you say? Because I heard Kelly Olynyk from Dr. Shapp on the podcast. I like that. Boris Diaw. Like he's obviously none of these guys yet. It's just it might be best case scenario, but that's not a bad NBA player if you're saying that's his ceiling either.
No, I do think like Kyle Anderson is a much better defender than Kobe Brown. A comp right now, I mean,
people want to say Anthony Mason all the time because of body type, but Anthony Mason was much more chiseled still. He was a bigger player. Kobe Brown still looks like he's growing into his frame a little bit.
I will give you a very unexciting comp, but it is a guy who has made multiple NBA contracts and been in the NBA for 6 or 7 years. I actually don't think he got signed this summer, but whatever. He's like a bigger Troy Brown Jr.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
A guy who I actually really liked in the draft back in the day. He was a guy who I actually really wanted the Clippers to take with their second pick. Would have been better than Jerome Robinson. There were plenty of other better players on the board, but he kind of has a little bit of that where like he can do like a little bit of everything, but like he never became quite a good enough shooter or a good enough defender to like really stick, but like has enough kind of skills and is like just good enough on defense that he can like be out on the court. Kobe Brown's like kind of a bigger version of that to me, which is like, that's an NBA player. It's not a very exciting NBA player, but it's probably enough for him to have like, a 5 to 7 year NBA career maybe, which for like the 30th pick in the draft is like a totally good outcome.
So in terms of this Clippers team and how they adjust with life without Paul George, without Russell Westbrook, as we mentioned, 2 guys that have the ball in their hands a lot. You've talked about James Harden obviously having to do more. We'll see if he's still capable of that. There was a time where you wouldn't want many other guys over him in that position, of course. And maybe he's still got it. It's just 34 minutes a night last season. And he's turning 35 now. Can he really give you that much more? Are there other ways outside of Bones Highlands, who we do love, and we just don't see if there's a realistic path for him to get on the court right now? Like, it seems like the writing's on the wall for Bones. I'm preparing myself for him to not be on the roster, even though I would welcome it, as he's one of my favorite players.
His one chance would be if Kevin Porter Jr.'s suspension is for quite a long time. If he's suspended, which I would guess he is, maybe he isn't, I don't know. And if it's for like a sizable length of time, maybe there'd be a path for Bones to get minutes early in the season. The Clippers decide at the very least we can give him minutes and hopefully up his trade value. That's his best chance of being on this roster. I have no idea if there is going to be a suspension for Kevin Porter Jr. and what the suspension might be. Outside of that, I mean, I think the Clippers probably need to pretty heavily stagger Kawhi Leonard and James Harden when they're both playing. Like, I don't know if the bench unit can get to a capable offense without one of them on the court. I just I like Chris Dunn a lot. He is a guy who I think fits quite well next to James Harden. I think you can play the two of them together. Like, Chris Dunn might close some games for the Clippers because of how amazing his defense is. But he is not a guy you really want running offense. Like, he can bring the ball up the court. Like, he has enough of a handle to do that, and he can make basic reads, but he can't create enough looks on offense. He doesn't have kind of enough scoring leverage.
He's in that Pat Bev, Tony Delk type of cloth.
Exactly.
He's that type of player.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe this is the Terrence Mann breakout. Like, maybe Terrence, after all these years where the Clippers kind of originally, if you'll remember back in his rookie season, played him at point guard. They thought he was going to be a point guard and then shifted him back more towards the wing. Maybe he gets a look at having more ball handling and playmaking reps. It's possible. I think Norm Powell is a bit too old to have a breakout as a playmaker. Maybe it is Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, he is a guy who I think, other stuff aside, has just not been helpful for winning basketball at the NBA level. He does have a lot of skill and a lot of talent. Like, maybe some time away, added maturity, just a different context with a more veteran team, and he's able to do a little bit more of that kind of stuff. Like, the Clippers don't have no options, but I would say none of those are super great dart throws. I think it might just be Kawhi and Harden stagger, and I think maybe Shaq or Lucas brought up on that pod, maybe you stagger Zu. Maybe Zu is the bench offense. Is you bring Zu in, you take him out early, you bring in Mo Bamba, or even go small around James Harden. You bring him back in to anchor the second unit. It's like, our second unit offense is we're throwing the ball to Big Zu in the post, and he's going to take a bunch of hook shots. And, there are worse things. There's worse offense than that.
I mean, from 5 to 9 feet out, did he finish top 3 still? I know for a while he was leading in that area field goal percentage by a significant mark over Nikola Jokic. I think up around the time when he got injured with the calf injury back in January. He was that good. Hey, if that's what it takes for Ivica Zubac to be featured more, to be more of a focal point in this offense, I am all for it. If he can be the guy that runs the second unit, who also, for a big man, strong passer out of the short roll. He has been better and better in that area as a Clipper. And sticking with the big men here, I wanted to ask you about a Clipper who, well, now a former Clipper, is in Charlotte. That would be Moussa Diabate. Moussa is no longer a member of the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yep.
You're a Michigan guy. You saw him coming out of college. I don't think you were very high on the draft pick by the Clippers.
No.
Do you think there's going to be any seller's remorse or any regret over losing Moussa Diabate? Does he have an NBA career in him still?
I mean, NBA career, sure. I mean, he's not old. He's still 22, I think. I think he turns 23 in the next few months. He's not old. There's still time for him, and he's barely played in the NBA. I think minutes played is almost as good an indicator. Guys who are 24 but have played 15,000 NBA minutes already, there's probably not a ton of improvement left in there. He's still in his early-ish 20s and has barely played in the NBA. The offense is just so raw. It's just so raw. I think if he can get to just passable, the improved free throw shooting in summer league was that's a good first step. If he can actually make his free throws, and finish just a little bit better around the rim, he might have an NBA career. Seller's remorse, I feel like is unlikely. Could he have like, an extra few seasons in the NBA as like a backup kind of energy big man? Sure. Like, I mean, wouldn't surprise me, but it would be pretty surprised if the Clippers in 3 years were like, we really missed out on Moussa Diabate. I don't think that will happen. It might happen with Bones Highland. But I don't think Moussa Diabate.
Could definitely see it happening with Bones. Rooting for Moussa Diabate to have success. Yeah, he should get opportunities, at least in Charlotte. And sticking with that connection, Kai Jones. He will be with the Clippers in training camp. And I'm sure a lot of people right now are screaming, start Kai Jones. Start Kai Jones over Big Zu. I'm sorry. Somebody hit me up on Twitter with that the other day, and I almost had a conniption.
Oh, no. For really?
I almost had an aneurysm. It was bad. Yeah. He's the best athlete they have. It's like, turns out there's a lot more to basketball than that. Have y'all watched Luka and Jokic recently? Two of the best players. It's not just about a great athlete out there. He's got to be in the right spots. Now, I am happy he's there because he's more than worth taking a flyer on, because it is a position of need. And I heard you talk about Mo Bamba on 213 Hoops, saying you're not all that impressed with him. He's more of a backup to the backup than he is a second string backup center in this league currently. But he still has some upside to him because of his outside shooting. He's still somewhat raw. Maybe there's some untapped potential there, but I mean, that's to the nth degree when you're talking about Kai Jones in those areas. Like, what are the realistic expectations for Clippers fans to have regarding Kai Jones coming into this season?
I mean, the best case, realistic, is that he plays a few hundred garbage time minutes and that's it. And has some very exciting dunks, and I'm sure there will be plenty of fans calling for him to play more. And he won't, because he's not good at a lot of other NBA basketball related skills, and have some just fun highlight dunks in garbage time, which is great. There is definitely a world where he passes Mo Bamba as the backup center. Like I wouldn't bet on it. Like, as much as I'm not really a Mo Bamba guy, like, he has played a lot of NBA minutes, at least some of them for like competent teams, and Kai Jones has not. He's only played mostly garbage time for some really, really, truly terrible Hornets teams. And maybe he's just much better elsewhere. Like, maybe, again, like, having more of an infrastructure, like a better team around him, more talent, more veteran guys who just know what to do, maybe that helps him out. I mean, I think he's a guy who, like, if he played at all with James Harden, which seems relatively unlikely, I mean, he will get lob dunks. Like, he will have some awesome alley-oops. Like, can he play defense at all? Can he do anything else outside of that stuff? Somewhat of a question mark. But, like, I mean, if he comes in and, like, he's rebounding a little bit better, his defense is good enough, like, maybe the sheer athleticism is enough to get him the backup role. I would imagine that's Mo Bamba's to start the year. I'm honestly not super high on either of them. But like, I think there is a world, like, for the people who are really into Kai Jones. Like, I that backup center spot, I can't imagine is like that secure. Bamba's on a 1-year minimum. Like, the Clippers do not have a lot invested in him.
I'm really into the rap verse that he just put down. I don't know what all the lyrics were, but I heard Dark Knight in there somewhere, and I was like, okay, I'm in. And it was 3 minutes, no cuts, an uncut rap for 3 minutes, a cappella. It was nice. If you follow him on social media, Kai Jones there showing off the skills. So a few more for you here, Big Shot, and still to come. I'm going to tell you guys how you can win a new Clippers hat, and by new, I mean with a new logo. You can pick it out. I'm gonna be at Into a Dome this weekend. I will get it for you and bring it to your house. No, I will ship it. I will ship it to you. If that's how you want it. DHL or whatever it is, UPS. So Russ Stan's, I said early in the season, after the Clippers started to progress with James Harden, and it was noticeably better as expected with him running the show, running the offense, and Russ coming off the bench. I said, stand down, not stand. Stand down. Russ stands. And some of them did. And some of them, or maybe those were fans and not stands. Yeah, no stands actually stood down. Just how much of a relief is it for you right now to be able to talk about every player on the Clippers again without having to worry about certain guys that could get people upset at you or coming at you on X. And this has nothing to do with Russell Westbrook. He hasn't said anything to his fans. There's no, whistle for them to go after anybody or anything like that. He just has a rabid fan base that is a Stan base like no other player that I have seen in some time since Kobe fans, really. It is like that with Russell Westbrook on social media. If you criticize his game in the same way you criticize anybody else who wasn't playing good at that time. And he went 8 for 42 the last 5 games in that playoff series. It was really, really rough and really tough not to talk about it a little bit. So we're all attacked. How do you feel now? Is the burden lifted? Is the bane of your existence over with these Russ Stans?
Yes. I mean, I think I escaped kind of more unscathed than a lot of people. I just stopped tweeting about him much or even really anything related to him.
But see, that's not cool. They muzzled you. They shouted you down like I am.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm happy to not have to deal with this stance. I'm also like, again, this is where basketball in its subjectivity comes in, and it's part of what makes talking about it so fun. I did not enjoy watching him play either. I like nothing against him as a person. I just the out of control stuff. Like every time he'd brick a layup in transition, it was like a tear my hair out. Like why? Um, I just I will not miss anything about the experience, quite honestly. Not a single thing. And like again, like I know a lot of people, even people who are more moderate, will be like, well, what about the leadership? And it's like, well, in the end, it didn't do a whole lot for the team.
Turns out execution on the court is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Not just effort, not just energy. Execution has to be there.
Yes.
And in his defense, it seems like his hands are really mangled up over the years. He's broken them multiple times, just did it with the Clippers again. Like that has to account for some of the reason he is smoking layups the way he is. I know it wasn't always great, even in his prime, with him finishing at the rim because he goes so fast, but my goodness, he missed so many layups the second half of last season.
I mean, it's even more than layups. I mean, he used to be a really good free throw shooter, and starting about like 5, 6 years
mid-range
ago,
shot for a bit.
Yeah, like 5, 6 years ago, he just fell off a cliff. Like he was in the mid 80s for like his entire prime. He was a really good free throw shooter. It's partially why his efficiency was not as awful as it should have been, considering how bad he's always been in terms of just pure field goal percentage and like the lack of outside shooting. But like the free throws fell off a cliff. His mid range shooting, like that pull up he used to have from the elbow, used to be, I mean, not Chris Paul automatic or name like Kevin Durant, but it was a good shot. Like it was a legitimately like a weapon.
And like when they beat the Lakers, I think in 2011 in the first round or something like that. Yeah. When they overcame him and beat him after losing to him the year before, it was 2011 or 2012. 2012 must have been because Dallas beat him in 2011. In 2012, like that shot beat the Lakers. They dared him to take it, and Russ was nailing that jumper every time.
Yeah, and it just, I'm guessing it does have something to do with the hand injuries and like just the touch is just not the same. He can't hold it properly or just the follow through isn't the same, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, everything related to his touch just started falling off a cliff like 5 or 6 years ago. It really has nothing to do with his athleticism. I mean, his athleticism is astonishing for a guy his age. Like he's still so quick in the open floor. And if anything, as we've discussed, too quick. Like he goes too fast and kind of outruns the basket sometimes in just an infuriating way when you're rooting for the team. So I don't wish him again, like, I'm not going to be rooting for him. I also don't wish him ill at all. Like I hope he has a solid season in Denver. Like,
is that the weirdest fit you've seen in a while? A team like Denver going after Russell Westbrook?
It makes some, like, he helps in some ways. Like their backup center is so bad. Like it's like Zeke Naji or DeAndre Jordan or, and like his rebounding is legitimately helpful. So like, I think that will be a boon. Like Jamal Murray is a guy who plays very slow. I think they wanted to inject some pace. Russ can certainly do that. I mean, his fit with Jokic is going to be fascinating. It could be beautiful, like the ability to time cuts and like some of just like the sheer passing and playmaking on the court together could be really interesting. But like the lack of shooting, I don't know how you play Jokic with him and anybody else who's not a very good 3-point shooter. I just think the spacing would be too constrictive. But like, yeah, I mean, I hope he has a fine season in Denver. I'm not rooting against him, but I am very, very happy he is no longer on the team. I don't have to watch him. I don't have to deal with the stands. It's just the Russ Clippers experience is over. Thank God.
Maybe Jokic wants a new challenge. Maybe that's what it is. He wants to see what he's capable of, and if he could bring out the best in Russell Westbrook, because I don't know, that would be a feather in his cap. They go on to win the championship. Well, those two playing together, being that ball dominant out there, and as we mentioned earlier, Russell Westbrook has never thrived when the ball is not in his hands.
Yeah.
I basically have said he's turned into a 0-level scorer at this point. He can't shoot threes, he can't shoot a mid-range, and he can't make layups. Maybe that changes, and I have no issue with him. I enjoyed his time with the Clippers, but I also understand it was painful to watch sometimes because the superstar he was, and he couldn't get anything to go in that playoff series against the Dallas Mavericks. It was just, that was a hard watch. A couple of fun ones before we get out of here, Rob. We'll turn the page here. Because this was asked as we did a mailbag episode on C&D, Clips and Dip, on Friday. If you were going to get a new Clippers jersey for a new Clippers player, it doesn't have to be new, a current Clippers player, what jersey? Who's the player? And are you a jersey guy?
I'm not.
Say you were getting signed.
Oh God.
You're too mature to wear a jersey. I don't think I could wear a jersey either. I mean, I could wear a tank top on a damn podcast apparently and look like I'm trying to be Duke Nukem here, but
a Clippers jersey. I mean, I'm tempted to say Jordan Miller.
But now I gotta ask you about him. Now I do. I thought about it. We talked about connectivity, being a good passer, playing within the offense, and to your credit, when they drafted him, you liked the pick. You don't always like the picks from the Clippers.
I mean, I thought he was a better prospect than Kobe Brown. I still think he's a better prospect than Kobe Brown.
I mean, I think he should have won Summer League MVP. I think it was pretty obvious. You have a team that goes to the playoffs. You beat the guy on Brooklyn that won the MVP. You average more points than him. How did he not win Summer League MVP? So can he at all alleviate any of the passing issues or just be, a plus player out there already for them?
The problem with Jordan Miller is he's at the deepest part of the Clippers rotation. There are just so many guys ahead of him. And like, I would, and again, this is not even about the off the court stuff. I would just rather play Jordan Miller than Kevin Porter Jr. Like Kevin Porter Jr., I think might actually be younger. They're very close in age, and he obviously has like a much better NBA pedigree. Like for players who are going to be ultimately role players on this team, I would rather have a role player with Jordan Miller's skill set. And I mean,
he doesn't have the ball in his hands. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands to contribute.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he's obviously not going to average 20-something points a game like he did in Summer League. But what made the Summer League so impressive is like he really didn't have the ball in his hands that much. It was a lot of catch and shoot threes. It was a lot of cuts. There was a lot of stuff in transition. There was some foul trickery that is not going to work at the NBA level probably, but like that doesn't matter that much. I mean, I think if the 3-point shooting is real, which is a big if that is real, if he is like a legitimate 3-point shooter on relatively high volume, the defense is absolutely good enough. And like we saw that like he can do a little bit of ball handling. He's great in transition. There's no reason he can't be like a slightly better Amir Coffey if the shot is there. And that's a very interesting player. It's just like actual Amir Coffey is ahead of him in the rotation. And like we were talking about it on the pod, like Amir Coffey might not be in the rotation. My guess is he is, but like he does not have a rotation spot. And he is, again, a very kind of similar player to Jordan Miller and like a proven NBA rotation guy. There's either going to be injuries or Jordan Miller is going to have like, if he has just a blazing, training camp and they're like, this guy is just too good. The defense is incredible. He's hitting all of his threes. He's making like quick reads in the flow of the offense. Like we have to play this guy. I think it would be awesome. I find it pretty unlikely, even though I am a fan. I mean, the Summer League was incredibly. I think the defense was the most impressive part to me. Like his defense was really, really, really good in really all facets. I mean, I think he was good on the ball. He was good in help at forcing turnovers. He makes smart rotations. I think he's an NBA player. The question is if the Clippers have room at all for him this year in like the actual rotation. Right now, it's looking like no, but we'll see.
I agree with you. If the shooting is real, if the shooting is there, because he only shot 31% in 23 games of the G League last season, as I just looked that up. He only shot 31% in the G League. But it's almost like he caught a heater right away in the summer league, and you just couldn't turn it off. When he started hitting the Batum no-dip threes, that level of confidence, it could have just been a hot streak, and it happened to come during a small sample size in summer league. I hope it's more than that, because he was taking them. He went a game where I think he only took one after he had the hot Batum game. Mm-hmm. And then he went back to it. Like that was encouraging to me. He kind of relied on his bread and butter, getting down a hill, getting to the basket, drawing some fouls that, yes, he will likely not get calls on, not get the superstar treatment at the NBA level. But the aggressiveness, the athleticism also, he had a couple of offensive rebounds that were so impressive to me. Yeah. And just a motor on him that you love to see. Kind of the motor that people want to see more from Moussa Diabate we saw from Jordan Miller a little bit in Summer League.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has the as the kids say, the dog in him. And the Clippers
check the X-ray.
Yeah, the Clippers have needed that kind of guy for years. Yeah, I mean, the Summer League was hugely impressive. The G League was quite impressive. And he has like a real NBA tool set. Like if he can hit the threes, he's a 3-and-D and a little bit more guy. And like that's quite valuable. So I hope he gets a shot this year. Kobe is more likely to get a shot because just of the way, he's behind Kawhi. Kawhi's going to miss a bunch of games. He's behind Nick Batum, who is awesome, but also like in his late 30s and has played a million NBA minutes. Like Batum is going to miss some games. So Kobe is much more likely to get an extended shot. I would rather see Jordan Miller somehow get those minutes, but like, I think both of them, I hope, will get like at least a couple hundred somewhat rotation minutes this year.
All right, before we get out of here, I'm going to try something. I haven't done this before here on Clippers Talk. One of my favorite podcasts in the final segment does something called favorites. The podcast is called Compound and Friends. It's a financial podcast. If you're into stocks, hey, S&P was down 3% today. Great. If you're into that, I highly recommend that podcast because they offer some good elements and fun segments to their show, like favorites. So I want to try it here with a little bit of a twist. So a favorite can be anything: a show you're watching, a book you're reading, a meal you had recently, a movie you have enjoyed as of late. My favorite was just naming the podcast, doing the favorite segment. I just recommend the podcast. So if you have something you want to recommend to the audience, a favorite of yours over the past week here, Bob Flom, give it to us.
The past week. I can't really say House of the Dragon because everybody watches that, or most people watch that.
Spoilers.
I
haven't seen Last Nights yet.
I don't want to repeat what I said on the Law of the Jam in terms of music. You know what? I will say for music, I'll do a different album that I listened to for the first time, which it is the Velvet Underground's debut album, which I'd never listened to before.
You're kind of going on a deep dive of albums you missed along the way that are older albums?
Yes. Yeah.
I like that.
So I did Velvet Underground, the XX, obviously much newer. That's the one I did on the Law of the Jam. I did, who else have I listened to? I've listened to The Clash, bunch of, mostly like 70s, 60s, some early 80s.
Iggy Pop.
But yeah.
I got you. Okay. I like that favorite. I'm going to give my least favorite now, and you can think about yours. And it's the damn heat. And the heat brings the flies. And I hate the flies, and they multiply out of nowhere. I don't know how this happens. Are they asexual? I don't know what they're doing, but the flies are killing me right now in my apartment. Even though I have the AC on, it doesn't matter. However, now I'm going back to a favorite. I did figure out earlier, like a Febreze aerosol can not only gets rid of the stink of the bathroom, it'll kill a fly. It'll like stun them to the point
Really?
where they're not dead, but then you can just take the Kleenex and do it yourself.
Wow.
Play God.
Okay. I did not know that.
And if you get a lighter out, it's really special. No, kidding. Least favorite.
We get those in Philly too. Least favorite.
Fruit flies.
God.
I know Bob Flom has some least favorites. I know you got some things that have been bugging you. I know this. The Eeyore of the Lob the Jam, as you've been called.
I mean, the Heat is a good one, but I can't do that one as well. It is funny because I was talking about this with somebody earlier today at work, but like if I don't like something, I generally just won't watch it or finish it or listen to it. So like even though I complain a lot, I generally I will cut something off if I don't like it. I'm trying to think of something like I actually like completed that I really did like. God.
I know you finished Human Centipede, but you didn't like it.
You know what I'll say for least favorite is car issues.
That's fair. Check engine lights on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. To the extreme, but yeah. Any like car, they're so expensive. It's such a pain. Philly is better than Los Angeles in that like you can get around and like get by without a car. But it is still really inconvenient. I had to walk to the grocery store today to get groceries. Because of the heat, was really disgusting. So it was yeah, I'll say car troubles is least favorite. It's a real pain.
The Ben & Jerry's ice cream melted by the time you got home because of the heat. I don't know, man. E-bikes are in now, which I think is disgusting because it takes away the whole purpose of a bike. I don't know what we're doing here. You know, you don't even have to pedal.
If you ride a bike in Philadelphia and there are people who are brave enough to do so, you are truly taking your life in your own hands.
Somebody's just going to clothesline you out of nowhere.
The driving in Philadelphia,
Philly fans are tough.
For all the listeners who have not been to Philadelphia, Philly drivers I've lived in a lot of different states and cities, and Philly drivers are the worst that I've been around. Especially in regards to non-vehicles. Like they do not care about pedestrians, they do not care about bikers. So I even though I'm not an e-bike fan at all, I would absolutely not do any kind of biking in the Philadelphia area. There's a risky business.
Well, I mean, they're aggressive drivers because they're trying to get to the Phillies game to watch Bryce Harper. The Hopper. They got to get there faster or to a hot cheesesteak somewhere. All right, before we get out of here, yes, the hat giveaway is happening. Here's how you win it. So you've seen the social media production. Carlo Jimenez did a great video on his TikTok, or I think he's got like 200K followers, at Carlo the Broadcaster, showing off the new flagship store for the Clippers. New jerseys, new hats. You can customize jerseys there. And it's open to people with the check mark. Well, I'm going to be there this weekend. And I'm hoping, and I will find a way to get a hat for you. But to win it, you need 2 keywords. How do the keywords work? Well, I'm giving one away right now. The first keyword is welcome. The next keyword will be given on the show on Wednesday when I have Matt Moore on of HP basketball fame on X, who got into a Twitter spat with me maybe 3-4 weeks ago now, a month ago, over Paul George and him saying that he has some leadership qualities that they're really going to miss. And I just, fake shot knows. I've just never heard that from Clipper Nation. Like, you could talk about on the court stuff they're going to miss all day long, but the leadership stuff, I don't know if that's the way to go when you're defending Paul George.
It is not.
Do you want to give me a question that I should ask him or a situation I should remind him of with Paul George? Tee me up, baby.
The most simple question, what makes you think Paul George is a good leader?
I think he just put himself in a bad position in the argument and had to dive somewhere else and went
There
to
is
the wrong
no
corner
evidence of his leadership anywhere. I don't think.
It's nothing against Paul George. Well, maybe it is, but it's going to be a bit of a debate. Maybe, I don't know. I'm hyping it up. I'm just getting I'm getting the YouTube started for a reason. Maybe you can be a special guest, Bob. if he's getting the best of me, I'm going to call in the reserves. It's going to be like that X-Men game on Genesis back in the day where you could call in Storm to fly in or Archangel to help you out of nowhere. That's going to be me busting you in. But yes, HP basketball. Matt Moore will be on the pod on Wednesday night here on Clippers Talk. I do want to thank, though, Robert Flom for being my first ever guest here with the new YouTube feature we have. It's not just on Spotify and iTunes and iHeartRadio, but YouTube at Follow Out of May for now, at Clippers Talk on TikTok, and just search for it on Instagram as well. Rob, you're a gentleman and a scholar. I've always loved your work. I've never found it boring. I found it enlightening. And that's where it will stay for me. So then that enlightening, facet that I love about sports analysis. That's what you do. So appreciate you, and check out your work at Rich Homie Flom on X. He does it at the Lob, the Jam, the Pod, the 213 Hoops podcast. Any last words?
No, thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. This might honestly be the first time I've ever been on a YouTube basketball pod, so this is a big first for me as well.
Well, it will not be the last time here. As we get closer to the season, maybe you'll come on again and we can talk. We can decompress after what happens between me and Matt Moore over this Paul George debate. It's gonna get ugly. Love everybody for listening. Appreciate you guys. Again, the first keyword was welcome. I'll give away the second one on Wednesday night, and then you drop both those keywords in the comment section for that YouTube episode. First person to do so will win a hat, and you can text me which one you want or however you want to do it. I'm going to be at Into It Dome this weekend. So I'm Adam Moslin signing off. This has been another edition